Hi there, John Burroughs again. I'm going to continue with my autobiography, 7 Years to Life. This is chapter 50, and it's called Inexplicably Saved Again. After the Judith incident, I began to spend an abnormal time away from my apartment. I wanted to be friends, though they were not lovers. I knew they would always have my back. I received a call from Leslie Y., who I had not heard from in some time. She said she found this incredible old house in the Belmont Hills that was available for rent. She wanted me to live there but could not afford it on her own. She said she was meeting the owner to see it that evening and wondered if Georgia and I would take a look at it also. In the past, we got along well living together. I told her about Judith and what Georgia and I had been going through, and I was not sure if having a housemate would be good for us. We decided to look at it anyway. It was absolutely cool. Built in the late 1800s, it was situated on approximately 1 acre, and to get to the front door, you had to drive up this steep driveway because the house was at the end of the property farthest from the street. It was so private that due to the trees and other plants that grew on the hillside, you would not even know it was there except for the fact that the driveway was visible. After looking at the inside, we decided to rent it immediately. It really was a hideaway. The three of us started living together, and seeing strange men in the house was not a surprise, because when Leslie was single, she was quite the promiscuous one. What Leslie did not know was that after thinking about what Georgia had done to me over the past few years, I had decided to extricate myself slowly from our attempts to repair our marriage. I was not going to be the one that asked for the divorce, but I was going to be at the house as little as possible. I had become quite friendly with Randy F., an employee at the gas station, and his girlfriend Lori M. Randy, Lori, and their other friends were all about 7 years younger than me, and I could all tell they all liked me very much. Randy nicknamed me Bubbles because I had gained a fair amount of weight, but being with them helped me overcome my sadness and brought that youthful exuberance back into my life. Lori's best friend was Linda M., and she had an on and off again relationship with a boyfriend of 3 years, Julio. There were others in their clique, and I often had them up to the house to party. This is how Georgia and Leslie got to know them. I had also become very friendly with another employee, Joe D., and he rented a house, and I would spend a lot of time over there. The point that I'm trying to make is that the only time I was at my own house is when I was sleeping or partying. Joe D. was a gun enthusiast, and quite frankly, I never had a real interest in them. He was very convincing when it came to the importance of protecting your home and family, and the best way to do that was to own a gun and to learn how to use it safely. He also stressed the importance of personal protection. Eddie bought into that immediately, and he purchased an automatic handgun, the name of which eludes me. The secluded area where my house was located was enough reason to have some sort of firearm for protection. A handgun was something that never interested me, and getting a permit to carry one was something I would never do. I just wanted something that could be stored in a readily accessible place in case the need arose. I was thinking more of Georgia and Leslie, so I went ahead and I purchased a Mossberg pump-action shotgun with a 22-inch barrel that could hold 6 shells. I went to the range and learned how to use it. The idea being that if I was gone and neither one of the girls were victims of some sort of home invasion, this gun would be an effective deterrent, and if it was absolutely necessary to use it, they would have a hard time missing their target. They were not happy about having it in the house at all, but I insisted. I showed them how to use it and how to apply the safety. They both reluctantly admitted that on some late nights they heard sounds that scared them, but were too frightened to investigate the source. I said, with this thing in your hand, it would be safe to investigate and determine whether or not you were in danger. The greatest incentive for a predator is realizing that you are helpless. I finished my defense of the shotgun by telling them that I know I noticed that I was rarely around anymore, and you guys didn't seem to care. The last part was more for George's benefit. I was not going to be the one to break it off, even though I no longer cared whether or not we succeeded as a couple. I think that feeling was more one of bravado than reality, but the more I looked at her, the more hurt and betrayed I felt. It was one summer night when Randy F. went to visit my family in Oklahoma that Lori called me and said Linda and Julio had broken up again, and she wanted to know if I wanted to go to the drive-in with them. As service manager for the Shell station, I had forged many business relationships with the used car lots in the surrounding business neighborhood. I did their smog and safety checks at extremely reasonable prices, and when safety problems with a car prevented the vehicle from being legally sold, 42nd Avenue Shell was their exclusive repair shop. They would always give me great deals on used cars, and I told Lori that I had just bought a 1966 Ford Country Squire station wagon, and it would be perfect for partying at the drive-in. I told her I would call and see if Eddie wanted to come along, and then we would be by her house around 8 p.m. to pick them up. I always had some weed, and usually Lori did too. I stopped at the local liquor store and picked up a half-gallon of bourbon. We picked up the girls, and I told them I had weed and booze, so we were all set. Linda then said, "I'm sure that they will go good with Quaaludes," and off we went. This was not a date, though I was beginning to have feelings for Linda. It was just another way of good friends to party together. By the time we had smoked a few joints, took some Quaaludes, finished off half the bottle of booze, we were all extremely effed up, to say the least. Lori suggested that we save the rest of the booze and joints and continue partying at the house. I said okay, though I knew driving was going to be a perilous undertaking. The one thing about driving a car up to my house, the driveway was situated in such a way on the hill that if you tried making a left turn into the driveway, it would tear the crap out of the bottom of your car. To avoid doing this, you had to go around the block so you could make a right into my driveway, thus avoiding any damage. I was headed home on the way around the block with the four of us in the car, and I could barely function. The combination of the booze and the pills made it feel like my tires were not touching the ground. I came to the stop sign on South Road, made a sharp right turn. Instead of turning cautiously, I floored the car and continued right, veering off the road, going up the hill through small shrubs. I overcorrected when I made the left to get me back on the road. The accelerator was stuck at full throttle. I went careening across South Road and began applying the brake, but it was a little too late. The car smashed into and through the right-hand corner of a garage, hitting the rear of a car parked in the garage and putting it halfway into the kitchen before we came to a stop. Additionally, I had managed to break some pipe that fed water into the house, and that sent water shooting up at the air. At first, I thought it was some sort of fountain. Then, amazingly, at the speed of light, Lori grabbed a bottle of booze, ran across the street, and hid it from sight in a very large, overgrown bush, all before anyone came out of their houses. It could not have been more than 60 seconds after Lori accomplished her miraculous feat that the owners of the house and the Belmont policemen arrived on the scene. Lori and Linda went a few houses down on the other side of the street to my house to get Georgia. The door was locked and it was late at night, and I told both of them earlier in the evening about the shotgun. They would knock on our bedroom window and yell Georgia while ducking in the hopes that she would not grab the shotgun. Eventually they got Georgia's attention and they came up the street and stood beside Eddie, who was standing across the street from the house. While Lori and Linda were getting Georgia, the cop on the scene asked for the driver and I identified myself as the driver. Most people were milling around looking at my car embedded in the neighbor's garage. The moment the cop looked at me, and though this accident was quite sobering, he could tell I was totally effed up. I will never understand what intervened on my behalf, but the cop told me to walk with him down the street. At this point, I thought he was just trying to save me the humiliation of miserably failing the sobriety test. I felt my life was over, especially since Belmont cops had a reputation for being assholes. Then, yet another miracle in my life began to take place when he said, "You are really high out of your mind. You realize if I give you a sobriety test now, your life is going to be effed up for a very, very long time. I did not find any booze or drugs in your car. I grew up learning the hard way, so I'm going to give you a break. I'm going to put down that you were sober, and I'm going to write in my report that you made the right turn on South Road. Something caused your accelerator to stick. This caused full throttle acceleration, at which point you lost control of the car, and while braking, you overcorrected and ended up in the house. In my opinion, it was some kind of freak accident." I said while holding back tears, "Why? Why me?" He replied, "Everybody needs a break in their lives, and you need to think deeply about what happened here tonight and learn from it, because if you don't, and if you are arrested for anything in Belmont, I will do my best to make sure you're prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Now go home and call your insurance company so I can get back to the scene and talk with the tow truck driver." I found out later they had to build around my car before they could tow it out of there, otherwise that part of the garage would collapse. This meant seeing my car stuck in the garage for the next 2 or 3 days. The most baffling thing about this incident is that I bought the car from one of my used car customers at a ridiculously low price, and it was about 4 to 6 weeks later that I received a check for $895. I bought the car for $800, and the Blue Book value was $1,895. With my $200 deductible, this means I made $895. The insurance mechanics, when looking at the car, found a busted motor mount that can definitely cause the accelerator to stick, and they attributed the accident cause to mechanical failure. I'm pretty sure that the mount broke when I slammed into the hill after punching it on the right turn. It's something like that that confuses me more than helps me to understand life. I have no right being this lucky when things like innocent people being killed by drive-bys or babies born with defects that will have to struggle their entire lives to overcome. Is there some bizarre destiny that awaits me, or am I going to live the rest of my life with guilt, knowing that there are much more deserving people that have never caught a break in their entire lives?